Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with some more updates coming out from the Kursk region to share with you. We're going to talk some more about this ongoing offensive with Ukrainians pushing into Russian territory. I've got several new updates here for you today, coming out from Russia and Ukraine as well. So we're going to go ahead and start jumping right into the news. Today's date is August 20th, 2024. And some of the latest news we have here from Oleksandr Syrsky, the commander of Ukraine's armed forces, is Ukraine now controls 1,263 square kilometers of territory in the Kursk region, 93 settlements now taken inside of Kursk. Okay, so what we just heard recently in the last few days was Ukraine was somewhere around 1,250, and looks like they have jumped up to 1,263 square kilometers of territory taken over. Okay, so they are increasing their amount of territory they're taking. They're also up to 93 settlements. Yesterday, right when we finished our updates regarding the Kursk region, I found out they had taken 92 settlements. So it looks like they gained one more in the last 24 hours. So the Ukrainians are moving. If you notice, they're not moving as quickly now as they were towards the very beginning. Okay, within like a week's time, they jumped up to like 1,000 square kilometers, maybe even before that. And now we're starting to hear that they're taking, maybe 5 or 10 square kilometers a day, something like that. So they are moving, just not as quickly anymore. And we've had some reports as well that the Akhmat forces are really starting to engage with the Ukrainians in the Kursk region now. So it looks like they are definitely slowing them down at least a little bit. But nonetheless, the Ukrainians continue to advance forward. So let's go ahead and jump into the news. I've got several things to go over with you. But just before we talk about that, this video footage that you're watching here is Ukrainian FPV drones. These are first-person view quadcopter drones that have small explosive devices attached to them, and they use them and crash them into vehicles, as you can see there. And the one of the only pontoon bridges that have been constructed near Glushkovo, which we've been talking about a lot lately, was apparently destroyed using one of these FPV drones. And as you can see here, towards the bottom left of your screen, there was a pontoon bridge there. It is now gone where that yellow circle is at, okay? And we also had something else that was struck there on land, okay? So looks like this pontoon bridge is now gone near Glushkovo, and then we know of one that has been constructed near Zvanoy. And I'll show you guys on a map here in just a little bit in case you're not aware of that. Maybe you're new here and you don't know what's been going on. But let's jump over to the news. From next to just in, under the control of the AFU, 1,263 square kilometers in the Kursk region and 93 settlements, says Syrsky. During the offensive in the Kursk region, the armed forces advanced to the depth of the enemy's defense from 28 to 35 kilometers. Okay, so it looks like they've jumped up another 7 kilometers, up to 35 kilometers, pushing deep into the Kursk region of Russia. Okay, so pretty big news here. And let's go ahead and keep moving to the next bit of news. From next to, up to 3,000 Russians may be encircled in the Kursk region after bridges are blown, Bild analysts say. And Bild is a German publication, in case you're wondering who they are. The AFU fighters have 5 kilometers left to close the encirclement. Okay, so this is the region we were talking about over here. Here's Glushkovo, here's Zvanoy, and also Kuriz. Okay, these 3 towns had a bridge. All of them are blown, and these are the only bridges to bring anything into this red portion of the territory below this green line, which is where the same river is. And this is where the Ukrainians are mostly operating right here, all this blue. And they're now starting to push closer over here to Glushkovo, essentially almost taking over all of this land right here below the same river. So we know the Ukrainians are pushing west and trying to take it over right now. Now there was 2 pontoon bridges that were constructed recently in the last few days. One to the east of Glushkovo and one to the east of Zvanoy. And this one here in Glushkovo is now gone from what we understand, okay? So hopefully this map helps you understand what's happening here. Also in Tyatkino, we reported yesterday that the checkpoint here along the border has been destroyed, wiped out by HIMARS. And as we can see, the Ukrainians are starting to push in from the western side of this entire region as well. Okay, so pretty soon there's upwards of 3,000 troops that could be potentially trapped here, and the only way for them to really get out is to swim in the river north and get away from here, okay? That's really the only thing they can do, but they'll probably put up a fight for a little while until they realize that they can't hold it no more. And that could be the case, but we'll see. But the Ukrainians are definitely getting very close, and the fighting is intensifying in this area. So let's keep moving here. OSINT Technical reports Ukrainian forces have captured the town of Vishnevka, Kursk Oblast, further pressuring Russian forces stuck south of the same river in Glushkovo. Ukrainian troops are now 12 kilometers from the sole remaining Russian crossing point, a pontoon bridge spanning the river west of Glushkovo. Okay, so the pontoon bridge is the one that I discussed with you guys that apparently is gone now. But look how close the Ukrainians are getting. Okay, here's Glushkovo, and the Ukrainians are starting to push probably about 10-15 kilometers, not too far away from Glushkovo. So definitely the fighting here is going to intensify as they captured yet another town getting closer to this region. Okay, so yesterday we reported they captured another one, started with an A. I think it was like Anna Povka or something like that. Anna something, and it was down here a little bit more south. That was taken over as well. So let's keep moving here. Anton Gerashenko reports, surround and destroy everything. Kremlin political commentator Naroshnitskaya suggests carpet bombing the Kursk region on the air of the Russian Federal Channel. So this is Russian state TV news openly stating to carpet bomb the entire region that's been taken over by the Ukrainians inside the Kursk region. And that's assuming that they get all the Russian civilians out, because not all of them are out yet. So that means they would be essentially sacrificing some of their own people as well, considering that there's still many Russians that are in these regions. I've shown you guys video footage of the Ukrainians literally talking to some of the people who have decided to stay in these areas of Kursk, the Kursk region that have been taken over. Okay, so this woman is suggesting that they carpet bomb everything and just wipe out the Ukrainian forces in this region. So take a look at this. Pretty insane.
И уничтожить все. Просто ковровым, понимаете? Недаром, кстати, я надеюсь, что к этому и готовится, потому что недаром столько эвакуации.
Не будем,
иначе чего эвакуировать столько тысяч людей? Вот надо их окружить и уничтожить.
Okay, so if you notice, she says, maybe this is the reason for all the evacuations. Okay, I've been talking about this. Multiple towns, especially like Belaya. Belaya is like to the east of where a lot of the fighting is, getting closer to Belgorod, was under mandatory evacuation. They were speeding up the process of getting people out of there, and they're trying to get as many of their citizens out as possible. And maybe this could be the reason why. Maybe it could be so that way they could just carpet bomb everything. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I know that may sound crazy, and maybe the Russians won't do that, but who knows what's going to happen here. And I've been discussing with you guys that something big is going to be coming at some point. I think it's very possible. I think it'll be most likely conventional means first, and the Russians will probably heavily bomb this area, most likely. But you know, they're going to do something at some point drastic here, because the Ukrainians are pushing deeper and deeper into the Kursk region, and these fronts could definitely open up into Belgorod, open up into Bryansk. And what are they going to do? Okay, they're going to have to do something drastic at some point if they cannot push the Ukrainians out. So I thought I'd share that with you, just in case that happens to be something that really does happen, okay? So let's keep moving. Take a look at this as well from Nexta. Kursk Region Administration has canceled the distribution of SMS alerts, which are like text alerts, about missile danger and the danger of drone attacks, says the governor. This is due to the fact that for technical reasons, it is not possible to distribute them in a timely manner, as well as the need to reduce the load on cellular communication systems for operational interaction. Okay, so we do know that for sure, one thing they're concerned about in the Kursk region with this operation that's happening right now is that the Ukrainians are taking over lots of the communications. They're even taking over control of like some security cameras. I've seen video footage on X popping up that the Ukrainians were monitoring from like a police station. They were able to see some Russian military forces outside just walking around. So the Ukrainians are tapping into everything, and they're able to monitor many things that are going on well beyond the front line inside of the Kursk region. So this could definitely be one of those reasons that they're trying to control the control information, make sure things don't get leaked out, maybe make sure that some of the citizens don't give tips to the Ukrainians and maybe let them know what's going on. Who knows? But then also, if you think about it too, this could be the precursor to a major carpet bombing event. Okay, one of the first things you'd want to do is take control of communications before you launch into some sort of major attack, to make sure the Ukrainians are caught off guard. Now, the reason why I brought this up is because what we just talked about a second ago with that video from the Russian state TV mentioning carpet bombing. Okay, now this could definitely be one of those reasons why they're doing that. But there's obviously a number of things that could be going on behind the scenes of why they're cutting off communications here. But definitely something scary to think about, that they're definitely taking control of communications in the area for a number of reasons. Okay, also from next, the Russian Defense Ministry announced the creation of the Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk troop groups. Okay, so if you're wondering what this is, I pulled this up here on UNN. It says Russian Army announces creation of a new grouping of troops. The Russian Army has announced the creation of the Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk military groups. Their task will be to protect the border regions and counter drone attacks. The Armed Forces of the Russian Federation announced the creation of Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk troop groups, UNN writes, with reference to Rosmy. Details. In the Russian Federation, the Ministry of Defense announced the creation of the Belgorod, Bryansk, and Kursk troop groups, with which a coordination council responsible for the border of Kursk, Bryansk, and Belgorod regions will interact. Okay, so they're going to create their own, essentially their own military force to protect these regions, because obviously they're under attack right now. Bryansk and Belgorod could definitely be next, and we already reported that Belgorod's already been somewhat being attacked on their border. So definitely this thing could spread and get out of control and spread to Bryansk and Belgorod. So they're building up their own troop groups to protect these regions, and also for drone attacks. As I've been talking to you guys a lot about FPV drones being used. These have been very devastating, okay? And Ukraine's got tons of these FPV drones that they're launching all over Russia, destroying vehicles, tanks, all kinds of different things. The pontoon bridge that we just discussed earlier. So they're doing something about this, trying to get troops together to be focused on protecting these three regions, okay? So we'll keep moving here. From War News PL, says the commander of the Chechen TikTok Battalion, which is the Akhmat forces, claims that Russian troops have stopped the main offensive in the armed forces of Ukraine in the Kursk region. Okay, so I think his name is Opti Alodin. I think that is his name. He is the leader of the, as it says here, Chechen TikTok Battalion, or also the Akhmat forces, special forces, that are right now currently fighting against the Ukrainians in the Kursk region heavily. It is definitely a large percentage of Chechen fighters that are fighting against Ukraine right now. And what he has claimed multiple times, the commander, is that they are taking control of the situation. They are stopping Ukraine. Now, I'm not saying that this is completely the case, because obviously Ukraine is still expanding their operations. They're pushing forward into Russian territory. But what we have been hearing over the last few days is that Ukraine is not moving as quickly as they were prior, okay? And this is maybe because it took a little time for the Russian forces to get set up a defensive line, and maybe Ukraine is starting to meet that resistance now. But he has come out multiple times and stated that they have basically halted the offensive, okay? So this could be huge, and if they were able to contain the Ukrainians to this area, that's when we could see this major bombing campaign taking place next. Okay, so I thought I'd share that with you. Also, we'll move on to Tanya Levchuk. I've been talking daily with Ukrainian soldiers who are currently in the Kursk region, and they all share the same story. They're shocked by the extreme poverty they are seeing. Many homes don't even have running water, and the government buildings are in terrible condition. It's clear that this region is incredibly poor, a reality far removed from the image Russia tries to project. This is just another reminder of the vast differences between our nations, okay? So the Ukrainian soldiers, as they're going in there, they are shocked at how poor the Kursk region is, that many people are basically living in huts, no running water. So it's much, much poorer than Russia projects themselves to be, okay? They project themselves to be this major, superpower and whatnot. But in reality, think about how big their nation is, and their economy is not much larger than the size of like Canada, which has been reported before. So they're not an extremely rich country, and also it's a communist country, okay? So what we typically see in those types of nations is lots of poverty at the bottom. So that's kind of what Ukraine has been reporting here inside of the Kursk region, as they're seeing lots and lots of poverty amongst the population in the Kursk region. So pretty sad to hear about that. BRICS News, just in, Belarus President Lukashenko says Ukraine will be destroyed if escalation continues. Okay, so this is a big thing that came out yesterday, a huge report, which we unfortunately haven't been able to go over yet. I might try to do one today. We'll see if we'll cover this. If not, I'll cover it here at least. But basically, we've been hearing a lot from Alexander Lukashenko, even their defense minister, Viktor Krenin, just making extreme statements towards Ukraine, telling them they're building up 120,000 troops on their border. Belarus was moving their own troops to the border as well, like a third of their forces to counteract that. And they were afraid that Ukraine's going to invade them. They're even saying, if you invade us, we might use nuclear weapons. Just all kinds of crazy statements. But one big thing he mentioned yesterday was that Ukraine will be destroyed if escalation continues. Okay? So if the escalation continues in the Kursk region, Ukraine will be destroyed. Now, how will that be? Will Belarus destroy them, and how will they do that? Or will Ukraine be destroyed by the Russian army? I mean, obviously the Russians are continuing to make gains in the east. At some point, maybe the front line could collapse. Who knows what happens? But it's definitely something that Belarusian President Lukashenko has been mentioning a lot lately. So I thought I'd show that to you guys as well. Now we're going to move on to Peter Pavel, the Czech Republic Prime Minister. And he says here, Igor Sushko reports, does your blood boil when you hear Germans refusing to accept Ukraine into NATO because part of its territory is occupied by Russia, despite the fact that a Germany half occupied by Russia was accepted into NATO just 10 years after it massacred tens of millions of people in World War II. So Germany got accepted into NATO in 1955, and they were still under occupation, partial occupation by the Soviet Union at that time. That's what the Czech Republic Prime Minister is going to talk about here. And he's saying that, well, considering that Germany was in that situation, we pulled them into NATO. Why can't we do that for Ukraine? I think it's perfectly legal to do this for Ukraine. And this could be the next step. I have no idea. Obviously, this will probably take some build-up from multiple NATO nations to start talking about this. But he's openly discussing that Ukraine can be pulled into NATO before they even end this conflict. Take a look.
Jednoznačně následovat je nejenom přijetí Ukrajiny do evropského společenství, tedy do Evropské unie, ale také přijetí Ukrajiny do NATO, protože tady vznikne nová bezpečnostní realita a nechat Ukrajinu v bezpečnostním vzduchoprázdnu by skutečně znamenalo jenom si předplatit budoucí konflikt. Kdy bude mít kontrolu nad jakýmkoliv územím. Já si myslím, že není nutným předpokladem plná obnova kontroly nad celým územím. Pokud dojde k vymezení byť nějaké administrativní hranice, pak můžeme brát tuto administrativní hranici jako dočasnou a Ukrajinu v teritoriu, které bude v té době kontrolovat, přijmout do NATO. Podívejme se třeba na Německo. Došlo k rozdělení Německa, které nebylo akceptováno všemi západními státy a přestože část Německa byla okupovaná Sovětským svazem, tak Německo, tedy ten zbytek, byl přijat do NATO, a to už v roce 1955. Takže já si myslím, že je tady jak technicky, tak právně řešení, jak umožnit Ukrajině vstoupit do NATO, aniž by se tím dostalo NATO do konfliktu s Ruskou federací.
Okay, so there you go. Peter Pavel openly indicating that Ukraine could potentially join NATO while they are partially occupied by Russia right now. And obviously they control the eastern side of Ukraine, also Crimea, but the remaining land that's inside of Ukraine right now could potentially be absorbed into NATO is kind of what he's saying. So sounds pretty crazy, but definitely could be a possibility as we move forward that he's bringing this up. So we'll see if Ukraine ever joins NATO before this war even ends, but that would be absolutely insane if they did. So let's go ahead and keep moving here. Max 24, if the partners had lifted the restrictions on long-range weapons, then we would not have gone to the Kursk region and cleared the military facilities there, says Zelensky. The West is delaying the supply of weapons to Ukraine. Putin's zero reaction proves that there is no reason not to give us permission to hit Russia with long-range weapons. Russia's relations with such regimes as those in Pyongyang and Tehran pose a threat not only to Ukraine. Ukraine is ready to act as a guarantor of peace for the world. Okay, so Ukraine is ready to go after these airfields. They've been talking about this for a long time, that, you know, they want Western partners to lift restrictions, allow them to use long-range weapons like British Storm Shadow missiles, ATACMS missiles, even the French Scalp missiles, and start going after airfields, start taking out their, you know, their Tu-95 MS bombers, whatever, you know, crazy aircraft they have sitting on these airfields that could easily be destroyed with long-range weapons. They could start going after these, but obviously the West has been very hesitant to allow this to happen. And this is something that Zelensky's been saying a lot lately, is the West is delaying supply of weapons to Ukraine. Okay, so that's something he's been mentioning a lot over the last few days. And obviously we don't know what's really happening on the back end, whether they are actually getting these weapons or if he's just stating that. But I mean, clearly they're able to launch this offensive into the Kursk region. And I think a lot of this has to do with what he's stating here, the fact that they've had these restrictions on long-range weapons. So, well, we'll just go in and take care of it ourselves then. If you'll let us use tanks and ground vehicles, we'll just launch an offensive into Russia, is kind of how I see that. So also, from Igor Sushko, Kursk offensive, Ukrainian soldiers immediately fed the Russians who surrendered, even laid down cushions so they don't have to sit on the hard ground. So we've even got a video here of more Russian soldiers in the Kursk region surrendering and being held captive here by the Ukrainians. Take a look at this.
Боже мой, ти серйозно поставив йому під жопу цю штучку, це так мило.
Бач, кими, блядь.
Нормальні люди, йо-моє.
Ну, перепіднесись трошки, давай. Все, сідай. Дай, Ігорьок. Каву дали вам попити, все дали вам, поїсти. Ну, що ваші казали, що, блядь, пі***ли українці, да? А казалося, що не так. Бач. Маєте що розказати, хлопці? Хто такі українці?
Ну, я просто только вообще сейчас это осознаю, понимаешь.
А як довести вашим, блядь, що тут нема таких, що хочуть вас убивати, блядь?
Так вот именно они говорят всякую хуйню за вас. И поебать не сдавайтесь, там, вам пизда, там, то, еще, там, пятое, десятое. А на самом деле-то, ну, ебать не так. Ну, блядь, будет все хорошо. То, что там говорят, это все хуйня. Автомат выкинул и пошел, блядь. Сказал, сдаюсь нахуй.
Ніхто вас не трогає, так?
Да. Я говорю, нас вообще нормально встретили, ну, так как бы и кофе нам приготовили, там, покушать дали, и сигарет, там, ну, как бы вообще ни в чем не отказывали. Говорили, что надо, типа, спрашивайте.
Okay, so my apologies that there's no subtitles in this video, but as we can see from there, a few Russian soldiers being held captive here by the Ukrainians, and something, if you notice, they're being very kind to them. Again, they're giving them cushions to sit on while they sit on the ground, so that way they're a little bit more comfortable. It almost makes you wonder if maybe they may attempt to ask them, you know, do you want to switch sides, maybe fight for the Ukrainian army, and maybe that's why they're being so nice to them. But regardless, we do see this a lot, that the Ukrainians seem to be very friendly to the Russians when they are captured, which is a good thing at the end of the day. Obviously, this is a war being fought, but, you know, there are rules of war as well, and at least they are being friendly to them, which is a cool thing to see from the Ukrainians. So let's keep moving. Next to reports, Zelensky, a few months ago, many people in the world, if they had heard that we were planning an operation like the one in Kursk region, would have said that it was unrealistic and that it was the crossing of supposedly the reddest of all red lines Russia has. All the concepts of Russia's red lines have fallen apart these days somewhere near Sudzha, added Zelensky. So that's something big that he's been talking a lot about lately too, is that a lot of these red lines have been crossed, but Russia does not react, okay? And we continuously hear this from Volodymyr Zelensky. That's also why he keeps calling for American weapons and whatever British weapons, long-range cruise missiles that they could be using, or ballistic missiles to start going after Russian airfields or Russian military targets deep inside of their territory. And, for some reason, the Biden administration is still not allowing them to do that. Who knows? Maybe they'll never let them do this. And it's definitely holding Ukraine back from achieving real objectives inside their war against Russia. So I thought I'd share that with you. It's pretty crazy to see that too. Bliskovka reports, Ministry of Health has approved the Okhmadit Recovery Council, which includes 15 people from the hospital, the Ministry of Health, United Nations Development Program in Ukraine, and UNICEF. Today, the council will meet to discuss the phased plan to restore the hospital. Okay, so this was the hospital that was destroyed in that missile attack that happened in Kiev just a few weeks back. Maybe about 3-4 weeks ago, maybe something like that. And these were supposedly Russian missiles, KH-101 cruise missiles that landed inside Kiev and hit this hospital. Okay, this is a children's hospital inside of Kiev that was struck and was definitely damaged pretty good. Okay, as we can see here, they got the windows all boarded up and stuff like that. So it was definitely struck by a missile. So it looks like they're going to be rebuilding it here at some point very soon and restoring it. Hopefully they get some very good upgrades. Also, from next to Czechia will buy shells for Ukraine at the expense of frozen Russian assets, the country's defense minister, Jana Chernoshova said. Chernoshova, I think is how you say it. So this is a unique opportunity to support Ukraine to use resources that originally belonged to Russia and to save public finances of European countries. Okay, so this is something big coming out from Czechia, buying artillery shells most likely for Ukraine, using frozen Russian assets. We've been talking about this even with Germany. Germany recently announced that they were no longer going to be funding the war in Ukraine through the federal government. That was obviously kind of, we had some pushback on that from the Ukrainians saying that wasn't really true. But regardless, I mean, there's a lot of money sitting in foreign banks across Europe. They could be using that, the interest payments or the interest that's made off these funds that are sitting in the banks to start providing support for this war, which could be potentially billions every year. And we're starting to see that now. So it looks like Europe is really starting to heavily access these frozen Russian assets and using it to purchase weapons for Ukraine. So that way European nations can save their own economies from being devastated by this war as well. Also from Vicegrad 24, this is about Poland. Poland's border wall with Belarus. Take a look at this, a new photo that came out from Poland. Look at how much they beefed up their wall against Belarus, okay? So what we've been seeing before was mainly just like barbed wire fences and lots of troops. Now they've got this really tall fence with barbed wire on the top of it. Looks like a very strong fence too, to keep out the immigrants that are trying to flow into their country. And Poland has accused Belarus of hybrid warfare, sending thousands of Middle East, many of the Middle Eastern immigrants flowing through their territory on over to Belarus to try to put pressure on them. And we've even had the Polish authorities allowing the border guards to now use live ammunition to hold back the immigrants that are trying to come into their country. So I thought that was pretty crazy to see this new photo now of the border wall. I mean, imagine if every country had a border wall like that, okay? It'd be much better in terms of protecting their borders, and clearly Poland is one of those few countries that cares about protecting their borders. Also, we're going to talk about this oil depot that got struck just a few days ago. It is still burning, guys. 54 hours later, Igor Sushko reports Russia, the Kavkaz oil depot in Rostov has now been burning for around 54 hours. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Russian fuel destined for military use destroyed by a couple of cheap Ukrainian drones. 40 seconds of this thing still burning nearly 3 days later. Take a look. Okay, we'll go ahead and stop it right there. So this is a major oil depot that is being used to fuel up the Russian troops as they start to push into Ukrainian territory, the annexed regions on the eastern side of Ukraine. So what is Russia going to do now? Where are they going to get their oil from? They're going to have to pull it from other oil depots that are nearby, and it's going to put pressure on those now that this thing is shut down. And this is a major oil depot in the Rostov region that we've been talking about, the Kavkaz oil depot in the Rostov region again, okay? So we talked about this, I think it was just yesterday. This thing got hit on Saturday, and it is still burning, okay, all the way into Tuesday. We're actually almost 4 days in. This thing is still burning till today, so very massive hit by the Ukrainians. Also, from Igor Sushko, Kursk offensive, Ukrainians report elite units of Belarusian army were dispatched to defend Kursk region in Russia, but they just ran away and left all their equipment behind as soon as Ukrainians attacked. So he has this little message here. It says, according to our observations, elite units of the armed forces of Belarus were involved in the fighting in the Kursk region, but not a single unit is ready to perform combat missions. It is very amusing to observe that after shelling, these personnel dropped their weapons, ammunition, and equipment after they After that, they run away and do not know where they are, which is a big question. But we are grateful to the personnel for the trophy equipment and means of warfare. So they're saying, thank you for all the equipment that you left for us, but they're apparently not even putting up a fight. The Belarusian troops that are trying to step in and help out in the Kursk region, looks like they're not even really getting involved. They're kind of just running away, at least maybe in some areas. And we've been wondering about this, if Belarus was going to get involved either directly across their border with Ukraine, or were they going to get involved in the Kursk region and helping out Russia? Well, we've got this report here that shows that some of the troops are not even attempting to put up a fight. They're just literally running away. So also regarding Belarus, Bliskovka reports Belarus sends additional troops and aircraft to the border with Ukraine. Okay, we already heard they were doing this the other day. Apparently, they're doing it even more as of today, August 20th, 2024. In addition, anti-aircraft missile systems and radio engineering units have been deployed to the border. The reinforcement began immediately after Lukashenko's statement that about a third of Belarusian army would be deployed along the border. So what we're hearing is that Belarus is still sending more troops to the border to protect themselves from any kind of an attack from Ukraine. But we heard just from the other day from Ukraine's intelligence that they were saying they didn't see any signs of Belarusian troops building up on the border, so they were kind of confused by that. And at the same time, Belarus is accusing Ukraine of putting 120,000 troops on their border. I don't know where they get 120,000 troops from, but apparently that's what they're saying, that they have 120,000 armed forces waiting on their doorstep to potentially invade them or whatever it might be, okay? So thought that was pretty crazy news. So a couple more things to share here with you. Bliskovka reports last night, Russia attacked Ukraine with Iskander missiles, Shahed drones, and X-59 missiles. According to the Air Force, a total of 28 air targets were destroyed. Air defense forces of Ukraine shot down 25 out of 26 drones, 1 Iskander-K cruise missile, and 2 X-59 guided missiles. In addition, Russia attacked the Ukrainian cities with 2 Iskander-M KN-23 ballistic missiles. So multiple missiles and drones being fired at Ukraine again last night. I didn't have any updates as to if there was any damage or anything like that, but according to Ukraine, they shot down a good majority of these. Their air defense team did, apparently. So one last thing to show you. This is from The Informant. The Russian Defense Ministry announced that its forces have captured New York, a village in the Donetsk region. So this has been talked about a lot over the last 24 hours. Some people were thinking this was New York in the United States, but it's not. It's a village on the eastern side of Ukraine in the Donetsk region. And before the war, this village was home to 11,000 residents, previously known as Novgorodskoye, I think is how you say it. The Russian Defense Ministry referred to it by its former name in their report. However, Ukrainian sources claim that the fighting for New York is still ongoing. So we've got just a video here of these Russian troops putting up this flag in the town of New York inside of Ukraine. So, yeah, clearly they are making some gains on the eastern side of the country. Although Ukraine is pushing into the Kursk region, hopefully it pays off for them, and maybe the Russians will move more troops away from the eastern side of Ukraine to alleviate some of that pressure. But although the Ukrainians have launched this offensive, we are still hearing that the Russians are continuing to press on the eastern side of Ukraine. So I'm not sure what exactly the point of this offensive was, other than to draw some troops away from the eastern side of Ukraine, and also maybe to use some of this land to negotiate in the upcoming potential ceasefire negotiations that could be happening in November. We know that Vladimir Zelensky wants to host a peace summit during that time, probably soon after the U.S. elections are held, whenever we find out whether it'll be either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump being elected as president in the United States. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I mean, these are some of the latest updates coming out from the Kursk region. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, I hope y'all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.